Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Logistics Manager webinar sponsored by Geek Plus. My name is Michelle Mooney, and I'm the Assistant Editor of Logistics Manager magazine. It's great to see so many of our readers here today with us online today. We have a great turnout, which isn't a surprise given the topic. Today we'll be discussing how Geek Plus's robots are improving supply chains in different industries. And before we begin, I would like to briefly introduce our speakers this morning and welcome them. So firstly, we have Mike Morgan, Sales Manager of Geek Plus. Mike has been in the logistics industry for 4 years, and he spent the first 3 years working with more traditional warehousing equipment and moved into robotics and AMRs around a year ago. With his industrial experiences, Mike is now a professional consultant advising customers on how to reduce their pain points by using AMR technology. Next, we have Marcus Uprichard, Head of Business Development and Partnerships at Breathe Technologies. Marcus focuses on providing innovative warehouse automation systems, software, and services. As Geek Plus UK and Ireland's partner, Breathe Technologies helps to design, implement, optimize, and service its AMR and AI logistics solutions. Finally, we have Abdul Ahad Khan, Director of Range Plus. Welcome. Abdul has more than 15 years of experience within retail and e-commerce. And Abdul started Range Plus in 2014, and from the very start has been focusing on warehouse automation to manage growth and break operational bottlenecks. From a complete manual operation, Range Plus today operates a warehouse with fully automated picking and semi-automated packing lines. So good morning, Mike. I believe you're going to show us a presentation on Geek Plus's strategy and your product range, and tell us about your new HQ.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thanks for having us. Thank you very much. Yes, Mike Morgan here from Geek Plus. Pleasure to be here to be speaking to you guys today. So I guess to start, really, I've got a video to show you guys, which should give you a nice flavor of what we're all about. So we'll start with that.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess I'll move on to the questions. Thank you so much for the presentation. So I guess first question I should really ask you, Mike, is what are the aspects of Geek Plus's roadmap? Where are you going in the next 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the best way to answer that question is sort of where we've been, where we are now, and obviously how that looks for the future. So we are very product and results driven. We started with our P series, which is kind of our bread and butter, our initial robot that we introduced to the market, and we've done very well with that. Obviously, getting great results from AMR tech, working with more and more customers, getting them more familiar with the robot systems. And then obviously, as the market demands change and grow, then obviously we need to develop more technology to keep up with that and keep up with the customer demand. So one aspect of our roadmap is to continue to develop products, to continue to meet the market demands. Even this morning when I was speaking to the team, I was told that another product is going to be available in the next coming month. And that is, every month we get told about updates, about new products. So that is a real central pillar of our roadmap, is always introducing new tech and new products to the market. And obviously the presence in the UK on the back of that is growing. Obviously our team is growing. I think it's tripled in size since even I joined less than a year ago. And we've got our HQ, which is going to be open and ready for visitors in the summer, which would be great to have people down to showcase obviously the robots there, and be a really good collaborative space for us to work with our clients and obviously with the wider team. And that's going to be in Daresbury.
Perfect, thank you. So I guess I should ask more about your HQ. Tell me about that, please.
Yeah, it's in Daresbury, which is obviously northwest of England, near Chester. And it's going to be a really, really nice space. It's on the science park. So what we hope to create there is obviously a collaborative space for the team, but also to invite clients to the space to obviously work with us, to talk through their ideas, to talk through, their aspirations as a company in the logistics sector and how we can help it, and introduce them to the robots as well. Because I think one thing, once you're inside, obviously the AMR space, it's quite easy to forget that it's actually quite relatively new tech, and it's quite high tech, and not a lot of people are fully introduced to it yet. So this gives us a really good chance to get people in front of the robot, to see them, see what they do, and get their head around actually how can this really benefit them and their operation.
Thank you. So how has your automation developed over the past 12 to 24 months?
The automation, how has it developed? There's a couple things that I would say the most significant in terms of development. And I suppose this slide that we're looking at now is kind of summing all that up really. So as we develop new products, obviously based on what the market is demanding, then obviously we can innovate, and we've got obviously patents there to prove our growth and our innovation and our focus on the customer. And for me, when I speak to customers, the two main things that I talk about are the intelligence of the system. So we're no longer just doing pre-programmed turn left, turn right, up, down, it's 12 o'clock, switch off. We're not doing that anymore. Everything's fluid. Everything is intelligence based. So what we're doing is a lot more, it's AI driven. It's a lot more intelligent system. It's driven by the WMS and the needs of the customer. So that's a huge step. The other thing is the scalability. So obviously with the traditional systems, we start out with, you have to understand, okay, what the throughput's going to be. We have to maybe design for peak, and then we have to put in an entire rig from day one that's capable of that. Maybe that implementation time is really long, but a very big, robust, cumbersome system perhaps that has to fulfill that. And your entry level is very high. You have to go in to make it work. There's very select customers that's relevant to. What these systems allow is a lot lower entry point. So we can start with maybe a few robots, a small system, and we can scale it. So you could start off with 2 workstations, 20 robots, for instance, and then as your operation grows, as your business grows, we can deploy more robots. We can augment the system very easily. So you're not having to put down, all the capital expenditure on day one. You can let the system grow and let the ROI obviously feed the growth of the system, the growth of the business. And I think those for me are the 2 most significant developments in automation.
Perfect. So will you tell us more about your goods to persons solutions? Right.
Absolutely. So if you don't mind skipping on to the next slide, I'll introduce you to the products there. So obviously what we have is starting from left to right. We've got the SkyPick or Sky Storage, which is pallets. It's what we call our 4-way shuttle. And this is obviously, well, it can be pallets, it could be racks. Basically, this allows us to use full height of a warehouse and allows us to store predominantly pallets in a really high density way and allows us to bring them out for picking. We've then got our robo shuttle, which is what we call an RS system, which can go up to 8 meters. It's a tote-based system, again, ideal for picking. Our original P series goes to person shelf racking. Again, that could be anything. That could be, you know, it's a really good candidate for pallets, for uglies, for absolutely anything, depending on obviously again what the needs of the customer are. And then obviously aisle pick, again, that's something that follows customers around. Our sorting, which you saw in the video, we've got some very good case studies with sorting, moving elements, and then obviously AMR forklifts as well. So moving on to the actual goods to person itself, I'll go into a little bit more detail. If you don't mind skipping over to the next slide. So I'll go one more as well, just a few case studies there. So what I've just shown you there in that video is our RS and our pop pick, which are two new introductions to the product portfolio. So if you don't mind just skipping to the next slide, I'll go into a bit more detail. Just the next, yeah, that's it. Next slide there. There we go. Brilliant. Right, so this is our robo shuttle. And what this is capable of is transporting totes and storing them at high density. So we go double deep, and we can go up to 8 meters high. What we also do with this system is we combine it with what we call our P40 robot, which essentially replaces conveyors. So the way that this system operates is we can store totes, obviously high density, up to 8 meters, double deep. So obviously you can go forward across, we can achieve really good density with this. And what we do is we then place that, as you saw in the video, it will be placed onto almost a tote on demand station, if you will. That is then transported from that station to a workstation to an operator, where the operator will then pick from that tote. And obviously, once the tote is done with, the reverse will happen. It will be deposited back and then obviously stored in high. Many benefits for this is because you can keep obviously the bigger robots sort of in the aisles, which obviously optimizes their utilization.
Mm-hmm.
The P40s are a lot quicker, a lot more agile, so you get a lot more throughput with those. And what we also do is we mitigate the need for conveyor systems. So again, we're helping with that scalability of the system. On day one, you might only need X. On day 12 months in the future, you might need X times 2. So again, if we put in a conveyor system, we do have to put in for more throughput. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult to do that because you're putting in again more conveyor and more systems, bigger systems. Whereas with the P40s, you're just putting in more robots. Again, if the infrastructure is in place because the racks are there, you put the space for the robots to operate within. So again, it's just a case of augmenting and growing that system really quite slick and quite easily. And also one of the benefits with that as well is because they are delivered to the person, we can combine that sort of system with the P series as well. So you're picking from exactly the same workstation, so you don't need different workstations. So what you can do is you can bring different product types, maybe pallets, maybe it's uglies, maybe it's big bins, maybe it's totes, could be whatever, all to the same station. So your consolidation can happen pretty much in the same place. You're not having to have put different operations further downstream. The robot system can operate with it all in the same place. So if you don't mind just skipping over to the next slide. That's just going to show you again what we were saying before, double D, up to 8 meters tall. And just to give you an idea of how big that is. I don't know if anyone's been down to Intralogistics this year and saw the RS5 there. It's a big beast. That was the RS5 as the 5 meter, and obviously we took away as 8 meters. So it's a big beast.
It was actually next to the logistics manager's stand, and I remember walking out thinking, oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Because if you, especially if you've only seen it in videos and
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know. And the same with the AMRs themselves. I mean, I've reported on them several times, and I always thought they're a lot smaller, like, the size of, I don't know, about this size. And I saw them at the show for the first time last year, and I thought, oh my goodness, they're absolutely massive, and you can tell how much, how useful they would be in the warehouse.
They're robust, aren't they? Look,
yeah,
like you say, there's that sort of that presence about them, and I think a lot of the time, maybe you've got the robot hoovers in your mind. You think it's like small, compact sort of sizes, but when you see it, you think actually, I could sit on top of that quite comfortably.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you know how much weight they can carry? Those ones?
The ones that were on the stand, so they're RP800.
Yeah.
They can lift a payload of a ton.
Yeah.
We do have our P1200s available as well, which are 1.2 tons. And again, that's just depending on what the customer needs. So they are pretty solid beasts.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you skip over to the next slide as well, I'll show you just another graphic about what we're saying with obviously the robot shuttles. So this gives an idea, obviously, of what a typical system might look like for racking and totes, and obviously how the two robots work together to bring the goods to the workstations. Good stuff. Okay, and then if you skip over to the next one, it's a little close-up of the actual robots themselves. So obviously there's the RS5, the RS8, and then obviously the P40. Now, the reason the P40 has that scissor lift locking mechanism on the top, that's because when it's in transit, it will be nice and squat and compact, so it can go underneath the racks. And then when it's delivered the tote to the person, it will raise up the platform, so it's a nice ergonomic height for the picker to reach the goods from. And if you just skip over to the next one as well, it's just reiterating again how it works and how we get those throughputs as well. So like you say, the next generation of tote picking really is the RS with the P40s. It really is the way to go. Actually, the greatest strength is you can integrate that with wider systems, the P series as well. And obviously you meet any needs, your profiles, customer profiles, by just picking whatever tool you need out of the toolbox to do a job. Just skip over to the next slide as well, please. Just to give you an introduction, this is typically what a workstation would look like. So to give you an idea of what I was saying before, you can bring pretty much anything to this person here. So at the moment in the image, we've got totes. It could be pallets, it could be a rack with stuff on it, it could be goods on hangers, it could be anything. And the good news is, because the actual where the person stands and picks from is the same for all the different systems, you can have a mix of goods, which is really, really great for flexibility, scalability. And I know especially in the 3PL space as well, when customer profiles, customers change very regularly, you want a system that can really keep up with that dynamic backdrop, that goes with logistics. And then skip over to next slide as well, please. Okay, so again, just a high level view, what we were saying before, how a typical system might look with obviously the totes, high level tote storage over there on the far side. You've got pallets and rack storage over on the right side, but they're all going to the same place. And obviously it's all stored and managed within the same system. And I think that's a really powerful thing as well, is you don't have to have satellite systems that are all trying to integrate and talk to each other. You've got one system which has all the information, which you can obviously use, apply intelligence to, you can get intelligence from, and obviously get all that reporting, all those benefits, those efficiency benefits that goes with having everything in the same place and monitored by the same system. I'll talk to you about a case study now as well. If you just go to the next slide. Please. So this is Comic, and they do a lot of stationery. They do stationery and obviously all that sort of paraphernalia goes with that. These guys have deployed the RF with the P40 and they've done it really well. So obviously they're meeting, they've got a large SKU profile, lots of different SKUs, lots of different sizes and mix and everything that goes with it. So obviously the tote system and the mechanisms that hold that system together was really, really beneficial for them. So obviously they could put everything in totes, they could split totes if they needed to. They could obviously, they could manage the small stock because it was obviously captured in a finite space. So that stock management piece was looked after for them. Those guys obviously deployed that really well and it's working really successfully for them. I think that's a video with that.
Yep.
Unlike traditional warehouses, Comic set up a precedent in the office supply industry and deployed the first robot field solution in the field of office supplies. This area in the warehouse stores small and medium-sized goods in totes with high outbound frequency. This is Geek's innovative Robo-Shuttle RS5 plus P40 robot system. The RS5 picking robot enables high-density storage in a limited space. It picks totes from as high as 5 meters and places them in the bottom shelf to be picked up by the P40 picking robot. The P40 goods-to-person robot moves the goods to the pickers, automatically adjusting its height to maximize comfort and making operations more convenient. Industry-leading intelligent algorithms tally the popularity of the goods, greatly improving the efficiency of warehouse delivery. This is the multi-storied storage area where pallets and boxes are stored in whole, which further expands Comic's space threshold, opening up infinite possibilities for storage space. The 6-directional mobility of the 4-way shuttle with the industrial lift to realize 3-dimensional dense storage access. Take advantage of every inch of vertical space to maximize storage and throughput. Robots work together flexibly and in an orderly fashion thanks to the intelligent scheduling system. Refined and intelligent warehouse management boosts efficiency in crucial times. Higher density storage, more efficient and accurate operations, higher flexibility, lower expansion costs. Unlock unlimited potential in limited time and space.
So that's a really good video. I couldn't have said it better myself. Obviously how, again, just summing up what we've been talking about, really about how it operates and the benefits that come out of that. And again, the integration piece of how all the systems can work together. So what I'm going to do now is move on to our pop pick, which is what we call the next gen of picking solutions. If you don't mind skipping over to the next slide, please.
Unlike traditional warehouses, Comic
There we go. So introducing our pop pick. So what I'll do is I'll first talk you through I'll talk you through how we set up the racks. If you just skip over to the next slide again, please. So again, a key benefit that we keep talking about when we talk about AMRs is flexibility. And that really is at the core of what we do, flexibility. So again, we've got the same robot, which is carrying different racks, for different profiles of SKU. This system, obviously, we can get up to 3.8 meters in height. We can do tote based, we could do tote with uglies, we can do pallet. Again, we can mix whatever we need to do. Flexibility is, is key here. And what this allows us to do, if you just move over to the next slide as well, please. We've got here 2 different workstations. We've got our pop pick workstation, which is on the right, which we can get up to 650 totes per hour per station. That is picking totes mechanically. So what we use is a suction device to pull it off the rack. We pull it down with a series of cranes to the operator, who will then pick, and obviously the reverse happens for the put away. So what that allows us again is to get that really high throughput, but also because we're using the suction piece, we can pack in all the totes really tightly. So we're getting a really dense storage application, again, just using those totes. So what we're doing obviously is combining the two. We can obviously get maximum storage with the total density, but also we're going to get that flexibility as well, because we can combine, the racks to store different things as we need. Or in this case, what we've done is we've got maybe one style of picking on one side, and we've got another style of picking on another. Again, just depending on what the needs are. We could theoretically augment the system on the right and have a mix. We could have two apertures, and you could pick different SKUs from one aperture and pick totes from the other. Again, that flexibility, it just comes down to what the customer needs, and obviously what the operation at hand, obviously how we can support that and maximize that. You move over to the next slide as well, please. This is a nice view of what the pot pick station looks like. So again, everything is at operator height. So it's just, you're just reaching in and picking what you need, you're scanning it, and obviously put it away. So one of the ways that we get such high throughputs is by having everything literally at arm's reach. So we're minimizing the workload on the operator, maximizing their efficiency, maximizing the comfort, and obviously putting everything where it needs to be. So that obviously the operator is really put in the best place possible to be successful. And obviously we can make sure we get as much from the system as possible to make sure we hit the needs of the operation. So if you move over to the next slide, please. Again, just going on the density. So we're looking at roughly 4 times increase in storage density. And obviously half what we're saying is roughly 50% digital solutions. And the reason is obviously we're just using a lot less kit, a lot less footprint. Because we've got a smaller footprint, then potentially we need less robots. And obviously with less robots, comes a smaller system. Again, your entry level comes down, which is what we were saying before. The entry level to the AMR systems are a lot more accessible than you think. We don't need huge footprints. We don't need all the big infrastructure that goes in place. We can just put something in the system, whatever's required at that time, and then we can build for growth as we need to. And obviously, with all the mechanisms, the higher densities, the bigger efficiencies, like that, we can really, really make sure we get absolute bang for our buck. When we're developing these systems, they really are made to perform, and they really are made to solve problems within the warehouse space. Let's move on to the next slide as well. So I don't know if that's changed. We've got the next slide, please. I don't know if you've skipped over one there. Maybe it's me. Righto. So I'll talk about our Sky Storage and Ground Pick as well, which is a little bit of a combination of two systems, I suppose. So this is a very new product, something that we released not too long ago, but we've got a few projects in the works, which is going to be really quite exciting. So this, again, we're going with a high density, high volume storage, and obviously the high throughputs that come with our Geek Plus AMR systems. So this is really for that bulk storage. If you've got a long pallets that you need to store at height, this is an ideal system. So we can obviously go as many levels as high as required. We store as many pallets as we need. Obviously we fit in a particular space, and obviously we need a certain level of robots to meet throughput. And again, that's where we really what it comes down to when we talk about scalability. Is it's a case of saying, well, actually, because we've got these different levers that we can pull upon, we can develop a system that's bespoke to what the customer needs at a particular time, obviously, or bespoke to what the operation needs at a particular time. So obviously, if we need to pull a lever and put more bots in to get more throughput, we could do that very easily. And the good thing about this system, obviously, so what we've got is a super dense system, as you can see with the pallets. We can store hundreds, thousands of pallets in a particular location within the warehouse, and obviously we can draw down upon them as and when they're needed. And almost what this kind of gives us is as many pick faces as we need. So what we can do, for instance, one of the best ways to use this system is store everything at height that's obviously in bulk. So obviously the higher you go, maybe that's your slower movers or your bulk storage. And then on the ground level, what we do is we have the picking, which obviously that's kind of your active pallets or maybe your active shelves that we're picking from to replace or to pick orders. And what this obviously the system allows us to do is get as much storage in a single place as possible, put everything together in one system. So again, what we're doing is we're managing all the active SKUs, we're managing all the bulk storage, we're managing the throughputs all in one place. So obviously all that intelligence, again, all that information that comes through from a customer side, from an order profile side, from a storage side, we can all combine to understand exactly what's going on. You know, we've got a really, so what we're saying is we've got a really dense set of storage system there that's pretty much doing all the legwork for us, and we're extracting all this data. So what we end up with is a really, really nice system that's pretty much doing everything for us, and we're ticking out all the information as possible. And this obviously is a really good system for obviously, like I said, pallets, all that bulk storage to use at height, and obviously get really, really high density out of it. So I think that's it for me now. I don't know if you've got any more follow-up questions on what we've been talking about.
I might have a couple of questions for you. That was very well said. Thank you so much for that, Mike. So I guess an important question might be, how are the technologies overcoming risks in the warehouse? So think health and safety. How is it improving employee work time?
Sure. I think I think health and safety is an important one. I think it's one that we often talk about. Mm-hmm. Having the robots essentially quite literally do the legwork for us. So 50% of an operator's time is spent in transit, walking to and from pit locations, power locations. So what we're doing is we're immediately taking that away. So we're making them more efficient. But from a health and safety point of view, we're not having them walking up and down aisles. Eventually, we're not even having FLTs going around. So if you're taking all that element out of it, then immediately you're getting health and safety benefits from obviously using a robot system. The robot system is completely enclosed. It's a self-managed system. People don't need to go into that system. It's closed off. So immediately you get all those health and safety benefits from it. With obviously people being staying in a certain location, they are, like you say, from a health and safety point of view, it's a lot easier to manage. Even from a security point of view, you know, if you've got high value goods and you need certain levels of security for certain clients, then again, it's a lot easier to manage from a security point of view as well, because obviously all you have to do is manage a finite space, essentially the picking aperture, because once everything's within the robot system, it's inaccessible to people. So obviously you do get those safety benefits, you do get those security benefits as well.
Perfect. And so Geek Plus technology isn't just about goods to person picking. How is the company benefiting the entirety of the supply chain?
Absolutely. So one of our key product ranges is our sorting range. So we've got some very good case studies where we've deployed sorting bots, which are to replace, obviously, you know, big sorting conveyors and machines and sorters. Again, going back to where we started this, it's all about that scalability. Sometimes it makes sense to have the big machines that obviously put in place to reach a certain throughput. But if you've got a bit less than that to start with, then obviously AMRs are a perfect candidate, because again, that entry level comes right down and you can meet certain throughputs to begin with, and then obviously augment the system as and when it's needed. So sorting is a huge part of our portfolio. You know, we can sort based on product class, we can sort based on product destination, we can sort based on anything. And again, that's something that we can program into the system. So again, that piece of intelligence we can adapt to the needs of the operation. It's nothing that needs to be set in stone from day one. It's to be fairly flexible on as we go. So sorting is a huge element that we really promote, and we've obviously got some really good experience on as well.
Perfect. And I have a couple more questions for you before I move on to Marcus and Abdul. So what is the benefit from going from conveyors to AMR technology?
Conveyors to AMR, for me, there's two key points. The first key point is the scalability, flexibility. Obviously, like I said, the entry level. So, for instance, if you have a throughput on day one that's going to change from years up the line, then you can scale with AMRs. You don't have to plumb in for the end date, or if you do want to change, then it's a lot easier to do that. You just deploy more bots. It's very, very easy to do that. The other thing as well is the single point failure. So with a conveyor, if a particular conveyor line goes down, then you're kind of scuppered. You need that conveyor to be fixed for the upstream and downstream operation to be linked. With AMRs, if there's a problem with a bot, then that's fine. Well, maybe we need to sort out that bot, but the other bots,
You've got several more to back up. Yeah,
it'll keep moving. So again, you're reducing that. Maybe going back to the risk question, you're taking out that risk of downtime as well.
Perfect, thank you. And finally, will you please tell us about mezzanines and how robotics can benefit facilities of pretty much any height?
Yeah, of course. So mezzanines is something we get asked about quite a lot. Mezzanines can be a really good candidate for putting robots on. Obviously, we do work with mezzanine companies to make sure that they are structurally sound and ready for robots, because obviously there are certain requirements that need to be met. But mezzanines often are a great space to deploy robots because they're a nice clear area, a blank canvas for you to deploy a system onto. But even if you don't have a mezzanine, like say you've got a height that you want to use to the best as you can, because obviously warehousing space isn't cheap. You want to use as much volume as possible. So that's where obviously our RS models, the RS5 up to 5 meters, or RS8 up to 8 meters, and obviously this one here, like say the Skypick that we finished on, we can go up to as high, well, with 5 to 8 meters with the RS models, but obviously with the Skypick we can go much higher as well, depending obviously what the needs are and obviously what the requirements are for the system itself. The same if mezzanines are already in place and we to retrofit in there, absolutely, they're a great candidate. But if there is a blank canvas there that we can go in and use as much height as possible, there is a tool in the toolbox, in the Geek Plus toolbox, that can help solve the problem. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike, for your presentation and for answering my questions. I'm now going to move on to Marcus. So Marcus, hello.
Hey.
So Brief Technologies works very closely with Geek Plus. Can you tell us briefly about the relationship?
Sure. Where do we start? Hello, everyone, by the way. I think Geek Plus reached out to us at the beginning of 2020. They came to us introducing their company and their associated technologies, and Mike's absolutely right. Even in that short space of time, their portfolios moved on dramatically. But back at the beginning of 2020, they're looking to forge a handful of system integration partners in the UK to help them hit the ground running. And of course, support on their installations. So we signed a partnership agreement with them during the COVID lockdown. Actually, I think there's a famous picture out there on LinkedIn somewhere of Simon Horton, Stephen Show, Chris Roberts, and I celebrating the signature with a glass of champagne, which is quite fun. So it can be done in a lockdown environment. And since that day, it's been a flurry, really, if not a blur of high demand and activity. So. Some examples in recent times that we've worked with them on, Range Plus, obviously, hence the reason we're here today. We've worked with them on a leading UK grocery retailer, helping them to install a cross-dock type solution in a regional distribution centre with their P-series pick robots that handles pallets and racks with a pick-to-cage type environment. We've worked with them on a device management company. Lots of NDAs going on here, so I can't tell you who they are, but a device management company who fix phones and tablets, basically a service of that sense. And we use their sort robots there, so their S-series robots, to sort specific jobs to specific workstations. And we're also working closely with them very much in the 3PL sector, actually, on some really large e-com solutions where the Geek robots operate alongside other warehouse automations, such as automated packaging equipment, conveyor systems. So, yeah, I guess what I'm saying here is that the plethora of Geek Plus equipment working seamlessly within wider systems. So it's not just a standalone subsystem more often than not, and that's really important to us. We're a 100% customer-centric integrator, completely agnostic in our approach in terms of what technologies we can use. So our technology partners need to be able to interface with other technologies, basically. So yeah, very much mutual value in it for both Geek and Breathe. We work very closely together to source the opportunities in the market. We then collaborate with one another to provide the right solution for the client. In terms of who contracts with the customer, again, we're pretty easy on that. It depends. If it's a simple subsystem, then it'll probably be Geek Plus. But if it's part of a more complex system, then it's more likely that the contract would be through Breathe. To finish, in terms of the installation and support, we can provide the additional UK resource and UK expertise that Geek require to keep the customer happy and to keep the install safe. And then from install through to go live and hypercare, we can provide full-time annual support with Breathe acting as the helps desk to field calls and so on. So it's a proper end-to-end relationship between Geek and Breathe.
Perfect. And so you mentioned you guys work with Range Plus. Could you please tell us more about that relationship? Yeah, I know our listeners are going to be very interested in that one. Sure.
Yeah, the relationship with Abdul and Range Plus goes way back. I think it goes all the way back to July 2016. So Abdul reached out to us back in 2016, and after some initial discussions, it became quite clear that Range Plus was a rapidly growing online retailer within the world of toiletries and cosmetics, confectionery and groceries and so on. Abdul can talk to you about that. A typical question, and it's one that Abdul will remember, is a typical question that we ask customers, is where's the pain? Where's the pain? We can come in and talk about their operation, but that's the critical question really, and I ask it in pretty much all of my meetings with potential clients. And when we asked Abdul, where that pain was, that the response was pretty clear. His manual processes were hindering his growth, especially during peak demand when volumes were doubling. More often than not, with operations of this size, the key areas of immediate improvement tend to be found in the pick or the pack functions. And at that stage, it was the pack area that Abdul was keen to focus on in the immediacy back then. Why the pack area? There were two reasons, I think, Abdul, weren't there? One was throwing more bodies at the problem just wasn't the right thing to do. You could see that through his data effectively, but intuitively he knew that throwing more bodies at it wasn't the right thing to do. And then number two was Abdul, he understands people. He was very conscious of his, I'm going to say, social responsibility, Abdul. The mundane tasks of packing and packing and that repetitive strain injury and so on. Abdul was really keen on addressing that and trying to automate that process. So we designed and delivered a semi-automated box seal solution with integrated automatic labeling and interface software. So we used our own proprietary warehouse software, which effectively managed the data between his host WMS and the physical automation. And then the following year, we upgraded that solution to, let's say, fully automate the in-feed into the boxer. And we've been supporting that system ever since. So last year, Abdul reached out to us again and said, can we asked if we could make some suggestions on how we could now improve his pick function. He felt comfortable that the pack had delivered what he was hoping for, and pick was the next place to analyze, basically. So we analyzed the key operational metrics within his pick. So we're talking what spaces they're available, what are the products that we're handling, what are the throughputs, what are the pick rates, what are the put away rates, and took that back to base and had a look at it for him. And it just became very, very clear very early on that Range Plus would benefit from an AMR solution with Geek Plus, and that's when we reached out to Geek Plus, and the rest is history.
Perfect. Thank you. It sounds like a very good relationship that you guys have. So Abdul, I'll move on to you now. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
So I understand that during the pandemic, Range Plus recognized that it would have done a lot better had it had some kind of automation in place. So could you tell us more about that journey specifically, and tell us where you're based?
Okay. So just a brief intro that we are online retailer. We sell really small consumer goods such as toiletries, cosmetics, confectionery, and what we have seen that as the business grows, the entire operation of picking and packing just keeps becoming more and more complex. and you would realize that just adding more bodies is not going to solve the problem or remove the complexity from the system. So that's why from very early stage, we have focused on automation. Now, what happened actually, pandemic came, there's a huge demand. So what we would do on a typical, in a typical week is keep our website on for 2 days or 1 day, and then just turn it off for the next 5 to 6 days. Such a huge demand. But we found it very difficult to, definitely everyone was a bit nervous. People were not willing to come and work in the warehouse. And we realized that probably we would have done a lot better if we had automation in place. And in general, working in warehouse is not very aspirational. Most of the people, so it's very challenging for any warehouse to get people to come to the, first of all, recruit people, okay, to come and work in your warehouse, and at the same time make them come as and when you need, or punctuality. There are lots of issues in terms of people management within a warehouse environment. So definitely you need a lot more automation to overcome that issue. And at the same time, whenever you have fluctuations in demand, you just can't add 10 more people and train them quickly so that you can meet the increase in demand. So that's why you need technology solutions. So we reach out to Breed Technologies without any knowledge about how we are going to solve this problem. And then Breed recommended us a couple of solutions, and we considered vertical storage versus AMR solution. Definitely AMR was more viable for our kind of environment, because we can choose the size of a project that fits our requirement, that meets our requirement now, and then scale it up as the business grows. So yeah, so we started this journey in 2020. We started 2021. That we started early 2020. We started a discussion, and we went live in January 2022.
Perfect. So will you tell us briefly about your product range? What kind of products does Range Plus hold?
So we stock at about 4,000 different SKUs, and we source more than 8,000 just in time. So we operate from a 13,000 square feet warehouse, and the challenge was we were spending lots of time not only in picking the items but also in putting them away. So the real benefit of the system, what we see, definitely is making picking easier, but it is making putting away a lot more easier, because a typical put away operation would be, we receive a pallet with 100 different items, then we pick one item, you scan it, oh, this is in bin ABC, the person will walk to that bin, keep the item, come back again. But with the AMR solution, it's just fantastic. Actually, you don't need to worry about where you keep the item. You can keep 10 different items in a single bin and still be able to put them away and also pick them very quickly. So yeah, we talk about 4,000 items, really small items, toiletries, cosmetics, and definitely we needed some solution not only to make picking and put away easier, but also optimize the storage, because we are based in central Croydon and the space is really, really expensive. So we wanted to ensure that we get the most out of that space, and hence we needed some kind of solution. And we are really happy with doing project with Breathe and Geek Plus. And we are seeing the benefit actually already.
That's good. So on that, so you mentioned retaining talent was a concern for Range Plus. So how has the retention of talent or employees changed over the last 2 years over the course of the pandemic, and how has automation helped to ease that burden?
So I think as far as the human behavior hasn't changed actually, and and also because of the gig technology, people are finding it more lucrative to go and work with Deliveroo or other companies. So so it's, and again, there's no change in the human behavior side, but at the same time we just need less people to do the same task. So before we implemented in this technology, we'll have 4 to 5 staff walking the warehouse all the day, picking item at different time of the day. Whereas with this technology, probably 1.5 person can do the same job. And so is the task has become lot more manageable, and because of the technology, because we just need less resources. If we need less warehouse resources, then the entire operations is more manageable, because we always have few staff who are dedicated and you can depend on them, but then other staff who are not that interested. So with the use of technology, then you're less dependent on people, and then you can manage that fluctuation in demand.
Perfect. So at your Croydon facility, how many AMRs did you guys deploy?
So we deployed seven robots, and yeah. So I think that has been, as I said, 5-star, 4 to 5 star, being picking all day versus 1 staff or 1.5 in a day. And this is the picking side of operation. There's tremendous saving on the put away side as well. So, yep.
Perfect. So I think we have a few minutes left for some questions from our audience that I will pose to you guys, and you guys can pretty much choose who answers which. So the modular nature of AMRs is what makes them so popular among warehouse managers. How drastically are they improving efficiency, and especially in vertical storage, how are they most helpful? Do you, Mike or Marcus, want to answer that?
I'll take a stab at it. If not, I'll give it to Marcus.
I'll jump in after you. Yeah, go for it. You lead.
Yeah, sure. So I said run with the question again.
So the modular nature of AMRs is what makes them popular amongst warehouse managers. So how drastically really are they improving efficiency, especially in vertical storage?
Vertical storage. I think, just referring back to what Abdul was saying, really, within his operation, obviously there's 2 huge elements to put away in the picking. It's gone from a team of 5 to a team of 1 or 1.5 in a day. So, that off the bat right there, you've got a huge efficiency gain in through using the system. From the vertical piece, obviously, going back to what we said as well, it really depends on what you store and obviously what system you use. But all systems are designed to operate within 3D space. So again, the efficiencies, you don't see efficiencies drop off. Obviously, the higher you go, because the system adapts, and obviously you have essentially a different toolkit to deal with the height. So we would expect, or we know that we can achieve the efficiencies and we can achieve the gains that people are after in any setting. And we liked, basically, Abdul's story there is really, is one that we strive for and we hear a lot. So that's the question.
Yeah, I'll jump in. There's 2 ways to look at it for me, really. One, 2 directions to answer that question, should I say? There's the, let's call it the SMEs, and I'm not going to say well, perhaps in some instances startups, but SMEs generally who've been fine with a manual process up to this point. Let's say where Abdul was perhaps 5 years ago, and there's this sudden realization that actually automation is the way forward. I think what the AMR market has done in recent times is, which has a drastic effect on people's ability to grow, is they've suddenly become more attainable. They're being talked about a lot more online. Here we are doing exactly that. The cost has come down. And I think critically, the confidence has risen. You get the early adopters in any marketplace, or be it in consumer goods or whatever. But in this case, system integration and automation, you need to land a few in a market, and then suddenly there's much more interest, and that's certainly where we are at the moment. The confidence is there for AMRs, and rightly so. You could put these solutions in like we have at Range Plus, which is quite a simple subsystem, relatively speaking, and yeah, they can drastically change the operation. The other end of the discussion is, I'm going to say, automated storage and retrieval systems in the mature retailers out there. So historically, we've got shuttles and mini loads and big complex conveyor systems who've been driving the world of automated storage and retrieval in warehouses up to this point. And what Geek Plus are doing is they're really shaking up the market by offering these RS shuttles. I'm thinking in the main, which are these shuttles with the extendable arms that can take the totes and they can go up to 8 meters high. And with all of the modularity and scalability and the lack of single point of failure, all the things that Mike's talked about in this session today, suddenly makes those other automated solutions, let's call them traditional solutions in automated storage and retrieval systems, seem less attractive, less flexible, and less modular, and does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's absolutely
and
perfect.
can I add to the efficiency part?
Yeah,
actually?
Of course.
So when it comes to efficiency, you'll notice that you would be able to stock or store more items within the same space. Because when it comes to manual operation, you have to see, let's say where we keep 2 items in a space, a typical bin size. With the AMR, you can keep literally 6-7 items, and you don't worry about which item goes to which bin because the system remembers where it's keeping the item. So that way, within the same space, you will be able to store a lot more. So we are using 40% less space for the same number of items that we were storing before manually.
Really good to hear. I think we have time for just one more question. I think I'm going to direct this one to you, Abdul, because you'll probably be best placed to answer it. So you touched briefly on what your employees are doing and thinking. So how are AMRs boosting the health and safety of your business and addressing concerns of employees who would otherwise be spending hours on their feet walking up and down a warehouse every day? What are you having any positive feedback from your employees, or?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, employees with both the set of automation that we did first with the packing and the second with the put away. Staff, definitely they are very happy because it is, you are removing that manual repetitive task of picking, packing, and moving items in the warehouse. So definitely from the health and safety point of view, it is a much I mean, they less strain on their body, and so the workload is much lesser when compared to a fully manual operation.
Perfect. I think we have run out of time for questions. I just want to say thank you guys so much for the discussion. It really was eye-opening, and you all spoke very, very well. It's fascinating to see how Geek Plus's technology is revolutionizing the modern warehouse space, no matter what the space is, whether it's 50 feet tall or I'm assuming 10 feet tall, it doesn't matter. It was a really interesting discussion. So I'd like to thank you guys so much for being on. So I'd like to say thank you to Mike, to Marcus, and to Abdul. Thank you very much. And I would also like to remind all of our listeners that Logistics Manager is hosting Final Destination Logistics, which is taking place in May on the 18th and the 19th. It's your one-stop destination for logistics buyers to source innovation in any process involved in moving goods. So whether that's in the warehouse or taking goods off ships or the last mile, Final Destination Logistics is the place to be. So I'd like to say thank you again so much for our speakers to be on with us today. And yeah, that's it from me, Michelle Mooney, Logistics Manager, the best publication. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.